my mind. Now the world is ready for you and the wonders you can do.
Okay, that was awesome. Linda Carter with her oh-so-70s version of Wonder Woman. And now, along with news about a new Wonder Woman movie, comes a new book. The Secret History of Wonder Woman tells the story of how the iconic character was created. And Deanna Sumanac-Johnson is here with more. I am really excited
you look
about
so
this.
happy. Your face was lit
You know,
up
when I heard the music and I saw
I know.
it,
It's going to be stuck in your head for days now.
Is it ever? So let me ask you, so what was that Wonder Woman like compared to the original, I suppose, or the idea of the original?
Well, I think that, you know, people of our generation often, like, we think of that, you know, that show that came out sort of in the late 70s. We watched it in the 80s, and obviously she was a hero for a lot of little girls. I think she was this powerful female superhero. I mean, we've all dressed up like her for Halloween and so on. But the actual history of Wonder Woman, the comic book character, goes back to the 1920s and is quite a bit more subversive and more political than we would think. So much so that when the cartoon first came out, there were public debates as to whether kids should be allowed to read it. Namely, when she was when she first came to be, and we're looking at this book called The Secret History of Wonder Woman. It's already on the New York Times bestsellers list. She was actually designed to be a feminist icon before, like, really kind of a proto-feminist icon. And she actually coincided with the time of the suffragettes, when the women were fighting for their right to vote. So many of the things about her freeing herself from the chains, which is the image in so many of the cartoons and the movies, had to do with actually the imagery of the suffragettes as well, who were walking around often carrying chains, saying, you know, women are enslaved and enchained by society. And there was another side of this story, which is a little more risque, that her background also has to do with a kind of a kinky sex-bondage ideas and visuals, which also have to do with those chains on her hands. So it's really not a kid-friendly idea when you think about it.
Yes, I can see how you're getting there.
A little more risque, yeah.
A little more risque. So the creator himself gets a fair amount of airtime. What makes him such an interesting character?
So look at this guy who created her. His name is William Moulton Marsden, and he wasn't a comic book writer. He wasn't a cartoonist. He was a sex researcher, a bit like Kinsey, right? Particularly interested in female sexuality. Let me tell you a bit about his personal life. He was living with two women, with his wife and his fellow researcher, in a kind of a polyamorous situation, but was very interested in sexually empowering women. So when he handed over his creation, or didn't hand her over, but when he started working with the comic book writers and publishers to make this cartoon very popular, he said, you can change a lot of things about her, but don't change one thing. Here's what the author Jill Lepore had to say about that.
One thing that can't be tinkered with, I mean, you will have to edit my scripts and, you know, we will argue over the art, but the one thing you can't tinker with is the way in which this figure is an allegory for the new woman. The new woman who has a new kind of political power, who's fighting for equal rights, who works outside the home, that she needs to embody this new woman and the challenges that she faces and the promise that she realizes.
This book, by the way, I'll never look at Wonder Woman the same way again. But there's a lot of this. It's interesting now, you were talking about that movie that's coming out in 2017 that people are already excited about. And so much is riding, for example, on this film, because as Jill Lepore, the author, pointed out to me, there has never been really another female superhero who actually really only fights for women's rights. So she said it's going to be very difficult to have this kind of overtly feminist superhero and have her appeal to a mainstream audience in the way that, for example, Katniss Everdeen from The Hunger Games has. Right. And by the way, I'll have more on this. I have a story coming up this upcoming week on the National and here on CBC News Network that deals with the rise of the female superhero. The Ghostbusters are female now. Ms. Marvel has a female superhero in the works. So I think we're going to be seeing a lot of movies with very strong role models for girls in the years ahead, including Wonder Woman.
And I gotta say, I must agree with you. I don't think I can ever look at Wonder Woman quite the same.
No. Once you read about William Moulton Marsden, that image is now embedded in my head, for better or for worse.
Well, I am enlightened. Deanna, thanks so much for this.
You're welcome.